welcome to everyone in Hawaii. This is a very special event. It's highly mediated. I've got tons of cameras around me, lights, action. So we're going to do a filmed event, which is also live, and it's also mediated between Singapore and Hawaii with George Berean. So George Berean in our Hawaii office, he was a true pillar of WATG and that original office on the spectacular island. George, thank you for joining us and for being with us today. When did you first join WATG?
71.
1971. Mark that. We're going to not start quite there, but just about the early 70s. And who did you work most with, and who was your most important mentor at that time?
Jerry Allison initially, and then once Jerry moved to California, it was Greg Tong.
Great. Okay, so you will have heard those names undoubtedly, and we'll touch upon them and their influences to the history of the firm and to many of the projects that we'll discuss today. Now, I've got to say, George, who is your best known mentee?
Well, I'm assuming that would have to be Dave Moore.
It would have to be Dave Moore, our CEO. So you all see the connections. It is like one big happy family. Today, we want to talk about the WATG way. It's often been described as our secret sauce that we believe makes us different from other practices, and that has contributed to our success of over 80 years of tourism and hospitality projects throughout the world. We think this is particularly important today as we've grown to over 500 members of staff worldwide, as I think you all know. But what's interesting is that about 250 of those, like many of you, are in fact quite new to the firm. So we thought this was particularly appropriate to have an opportunity to talk to George and to see how we can connect the ideas of the 7 pillars of the design way with some of his experience of projects that are still seminal and are still celebrated today. So you all know what those, can we switch to the screen? Yes, thank you. Right. I think you've all seen those 7 pillars. Those are the ones I'm going to use to structure the conversation with George today. And what I hope to discover with him is how, in many ways, the principles encapsulated in those 7 pillars have been the heart of how we thought about designing our projects from the very beginning. One minor aside, but an important one, is I want to emphasize that, of course, the design way is intrinsically linked to the delivery way. I'm sure you are all aware of that. You've seen it all on the concierge, our intranet. And I want to make sure that we all know of both of those. But the focus today will be on the design way. And we're going to start with a project not from 1971, but actually from 1968. This is a project in Tahiti, French Polynesia. It is called it was initially the Intercontinental at Tarahara, and then later became the Park Hyatt. It's an extraordinary site, and so I want to talk about the site as one of the pillars and ask George some questions about that. You've always said that, in keeping with some of your previous observations, that resort architecture is the arbor upon which the landscape and the interior design solutions create memorable experiences for the guests. Tell us more about that idea and how you might upset some of the architects amongst us. I'm not sure, but remember, architecture in the background, interior design and landscape architecture in the foreground.
Yeah, well, often new people coming into the office have visions of, what architecture is and what an architect is. And I'm kind of rude and crude. So when people would come in, new interns, etc., I would say, there's a whole gambit of experiences here. So that end of the studio is the space age, and this end is the Stone Age. So get used to it, because day one, you may be down there, and day two, you may be over here, because we would have weekly meetings and staff accordingly, and whoever needed help. We couldn't assign like a total dedicated team to a project for its longevity. We have to deal with the manpower and the needs and the deadlines. So, I mean, that's one part of it. The other part is the, I don't think most of, or in my mind, I was never challenged that this is going to be great architecture and I'm going to win the Pritzker Prize. I mean, the guests, in my opinion, if you ask them, well, what was the neatest thing about it? And I don't think they would say it was the architecture. It was the landscape. It was the interiors. It was the whole experience. And so we need to keep that in mind when we come up with the solution.
Right. You're bringing me right to the next point. Is this not moving? There we go. Yeah. This is a shot, of the cliff of those guest rooms, and that illustrates.
Partner in crime from the 70s.
This illustrates exactly the point that you made, right? And the other one is that how, in many ways, this is, to me, a slightly schizophrenic building, because you have a very modern structure which sits in the hill, and then a very kind of interpreted or reinterpreted traditional form, which is the longhouse of the South Pacific, as the building component that sits on top of the cliff, and that's what you experience as an arrival of a guest. You sort of answered that question. My question was going to be, how would you respond to that? And you said, well, this isn't about winning the Pritzker Prize in architecture. This is about creating memorable places and experiences for the guests. Anything else to add for this? I remember Dave saying that this watercolor hung in the office for many, many years in Hawaii. I was really pleased to find it. This still mentions it as an intercontinental, not at a Hyatt Regency.
Yeah, well, to me, first off, this project just, I feel Pete Wimberly very strongly when I look at this, because this would be where Pete's head was at that time. So, and his solution was the building becomes a landform, and the public areas relate, to the local culture, the heritage, the traditions. And so, and also when you entered that lobby, you had no idea what was below the lobby. But there's a certain point where you got out and it all opened up, and the hillside spread out before you. And it was oh my God, this is a real incredible first impression.
Yes, this is the oh my God moment, which today I think everyone talks about as the Instagram. What's the Instagram moment, right? It's exactly that. It's the surprise that you see that's completely unexpected. I'm not sure about this next question. It relates to brand. We always talk about the brand essence, that we have great knowledge about what the brands are about, how they are different. Can you talk about that? I mean, the fact that this rather iconic structure switched from being an intercon to a Hyatt Regency, does that matter? Was there any difference in terms of how one thinks about the design depending on which it is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't relate to this exactly, but I mean, first off, we dealt with Intercon if they were our clients. We met their needs and their clients' needs. And if it upgraded up to a Park Hyatt, they would know how to modify, things as they wished. But we did have a situation where we started a hotel, the Ritz-Carlton in the Laguna Niguel. That started out as a Holiday Inn. And the developer owner bought the Ritz-Carlton name, and all of a sudden it turned into a Ritz-Carlton. Well, we're already 12-foot wall-to-wall in the rooms, and we're not going to make them 15-foot because it's 60% built. So we just threw a lot of money at doorknobs and interiors and the experience. So that's how we dealt, or how we do deal with that. But I mean, what can I say? You roll with the flow.
You roll with the flow. Yeah. This is a fairly consistent theme in conversations we've had previously with you as well. Let's move to China. So the next. Oops, there you go. Yeah. This is the Park Hyatt in Ningbo, and I've paired this with a recent project we've done, the M Gallery in Wuxi, where some of the principles are actually very much the same. And I want to talk about context and culture with George about this, because I think you worked extensively on the Park Hyatt Ningbo project. What was the initial inspiration at Ningbo to essentially rebuild a portion of the village as a hotel? This, by the way, was in 2012, so it's about 13 years ago.
Right. Well, it was a 2,000-year-old village, and that waterway existed. From a architectural, sociological point of view, how do you displace 2,000 people from a village and create a 5-star resort? Why would you? Should you? You know, those issues are there also. So we presented alternatives to the client in Ningbo, and the client at those meetings always had government officials and professors and scholars from different walks of life, and arrived at the decision, let's bring this up to date and do it respectfully and preserve those parts of the village that we could preserve. There happened to be two complexes. One was a shrine to a deity, and another one was a family shrine. And they fit very well and are open to the public. I mean, that was the inspiration.
Right. And which I think at the time must have been fairly new, right, to China, to say that you're not going to just raise everything to the ground and have a completely new architectural expression, but you're going to be quite respectful of both the I think it took a while for them to realize their heritage had commercial value. It didn't have to be a Western product or experience. And I think you see more projects like that now. For sure. I think now it's become almost like an aspiration, right, to celebrate the culture, to celebrate that urban form. It does, of course, raise some operational challenges, right, if you're in this disaggregated hotel formation. I think I'm going to have to tell you just.
Yeah, I think the Hyatt.
Go next.
They were on, I think the Hyatt in Noosa in Australia was the first decentralized resort project we did. Bern Keringle, the CEO of Hyatt, rather than have the traditional centralized layout where the kitchen's backed up to the main, or the restaurant's backed up to the main kitchen, the back of house was a remote building, and the restaurants put in orders for groceries to the main kitchen, and they were delivered to their own specific kitchens. And there were corporate villas and there were townhouses. So they started that probably in the 80s. And so they were, by the time they did Bali, by the time they did in Thailand, they knew how they could make the system
how to operate that. Yeah. One of the pillars that we always talk about is resiliency, resilient, responsive design. And in many ways, you could argue that, can we go to the next one? that the maintaining this urban form and maintaining the morphology of the village is in fact incredibly responsive, right? Because you show great respect for this. This shot, by the way, is of Wuxi. This is not the Ningbo one, but I wanted to show the relationship between these two projects and how that tradition has really flourished at WATG. So that's what this is. There's a couple more images of the Wuxi one, and then I want to move to Tanjung Jara in Malaysia. The Wuxi one is amazing because we just got some prizes for that recently, so everyone should be very proud. It's an amazing accomplishment and continues the tradition that I think you started. So here we are. This is Tanjung Jara. There's lots of great stories about this. It was just by way of background for everyone in the audience, perhaps in Hawaii you already know this, but this was a strategic project for the Malaysia Tourism Development Council in their efforts to develop the peninsula's east coast and to open that up for tourism back in the 1970s. And the objective was to create an economically viable way of preserving the environment, as well as advancing all aspects of Malaysia's cultural and spiritual heritage while satisfying the needs of the visitor. This is a direct quote. So it's kind of a great objective and great remit to the architects. The project was completed in 1980, and in 1983, we got the Aga Khan Award for Architecture, which arguably is one of the most prestigious awards that you could get, precisely because, as George said earlier, it's not a Pritzker Prize for frozen music as architecture, but it's a far more comprehensive prize that recognizes design as well as socioeconomic benefits to the local communities. So we're very, very proud about that. George, I want to ask you about the site, because as I understand it, you guys were actually given the choice. You were told, just walk up and down the beach and, you know, find the best site. This is amazing. This is sort of stuff that we dream of.
Yeah, well, this, how do I say that? We were part of PATA, the Pacific Asia Tourism Association. And PATA was formed to export the business of tourism or resort architecture out into the Pacific. So Fiji was a recipient of their services. So was Samoa, and ultimately Malaysia. So we did tourism master plans, but we were joined by multidiscipline firms such as Belt Collins, who had planning and landscape and engineering. So a team would go out there. It wasn't just, we were part of that team. And just because they've had previous experiences of similar kind of challenges, would come up with a recommendation, well, where we thought this was the best. Mm-hmm. So I received a verbal description of this site, and we first started our first bubble diagrams in Honolulu. It wasn't until Jerry Allison and I really got out on the site that we could really nail down what made sense and where it made sense.
Yeah, the site plan that we see on the screen now, that's the final one. But yes, the original one is the one that infamously was dictated over a telephone, right? Where I don't know did you do the drawing and Jerry was speaking on the other end of the phone, or who was it who was?
No, Jerry wasn't even in the office, so we just blocked out a bubble diagram. Okay. The partner sending it was George Wissenden, not Pete Wimberly. I don't know if Pete would bother. So Wiz was the business person, and he knew that, you know, we got to get this ball rolling and get it rolling quick, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. And of course, this site then suggested other programmatic components. For those of you who paid close attention, the award was given for both Tanjung Jara, the resort, as well as, can we go to the next one? Yeah, as well as for this structure and this building, which is the visitor center and conservation center and Rantau Abang, and that related to the turtles and the turtle nesting sites in the area. So it was a combined project. But what really sets this project apart for me is the focus on craft, materials, and technology. And the fact that you guys studied the Malay istanas. Go to the next one. The next one, yeah. Which are the traditional palaces in the Malay world. You studied those very carefully. Not only that, you then sought out, the next one, craftsmen who were still able to produce these carvings that have become part and parcel of the design at Tanjung Jara. Next one. And then, of course, how to adapt those traditional forms and those traditional building types to a modern function, which is a hotel and the guest rooms. Talk a little bit about that, and how did you find those craftsmen, and what was that experience like?
Well, I'm just a lowly associate. Jerry is a partner. He knows, so, and this is his third or fourth project of this type. So Jerry was a good friend of the Terry Sutherland, who was with the Tourism Development Authority. And so they had access to museums and national monuments, et cetera, et cetera. So we visited the museums, we bought books and pictures, and we visited a famous painter at that point in time, who was in Pahang, I think, north of Terengganu. So, it just sort of evolved
from there. But what I found remarkable is that these people, like this chap here carving away, they weren't just inspiring you, they were actually contributing to the construction of the resort. And that is just incredibly inspirational. And I think it's part of the reason why we received the award, right? It wasn't just a sensitive design, it was the way in which the work of these people, and therefore maintaining a tradition that continues to be economically viable and integrating that into a modern economic context of tourism. That was the sort of extraordinary thing. Okay, I want to stop on this one because the other aspect here is responsive and resilient design. And my understanding is that there was limited use of air conditioning, precisely because the buildings themselves as a typology and the rooms were fairly well naturally ventilated, in part because of the proximity to the coast, but also because of the way in which they related to the original forms of the buildings, which of course didn't have air conditioning. How did that work, even in the late 70s, for a luxury hotel that was trying to attract visitors from all over the place? Well,
the interior spaces were hermetically sealed, so the breezes could go through them. A lot of our resorts at that time, you would have AC, but essentially you blow cold air out in the ceiling, and it will flow down and flow out. But there was no return air. I mean, it was crude and simple. So, I mean, I guess that was acceptable as far as guest comforts were concerned.
For guest comforts, and then have other spaces like these where you wouldn't necessarily have air conditioning. You would just have natural airflow coming through. And that was expected, I suppose, because you decided to go to the tropics on holiday. Okay. The next project we're going to talk about is in South Africa. In many ways, to me, this is the kind of antithesis of Tanjung Jara. This is, for those of you who know, this is the Palace of the Lost City. It was opened in 1992, I think, 93, something like that. And unlike this sort of very authentic, researched approach to Tanjung Jara, this is pure invention, right? There's nothing about this place that you see today which meaningfully relates to the place. And at the time, I remember I was a young professional just starting out, and there was a lot of criticism in the professional press around this. What do you say to that, George?
Boo-hoo. This was Jerry Allison's project. We had done some work with Disney. I think we did the Floridian in Anaheim, and I think we did, I forget the name of the building we did in Florida, and we were also involved in Paris. So fantasy was no stranger to our firm, and these were sort of mega projects already. So when this opportunity came up in Bophuthatswana, at the time, because gambling wasn't allowed in South Africa, so across the border you could gamble. So Jerry put his thinking cap and his why not cap on, and came up with something that was good for gaming, good for entertainment, good for fantasy, and he drew on, the elements that he felt would portray that experience.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, right? While it is this fantastical place, fantasy is an important part of tourism. It is one aspect. In fact, some people argue that all forms of tourism is fantasy, right? Even if you go into a traditional village or you go to Tanjong, these are all manufactured environments. And the fact that you are there as a visitor means it's a bit of a fantastical arrangement. But what we mustn't forget that even here, the next couple of slides, you'll see this is a fully fledged and very well thought through resort hotel that has the golf, it has the casino, it has pools, it has I think an artificial beach, even though this stuff looks like, sort of set design and complete fantastical imagination that looks like it's ready for a film set. But here, this is the golf example. I think there's one more shot of the environment for the beach and the swimming pools, which are fantastic. Okay, the next one is also quite theatrical. It's quite themed, but it's a little different because this one is Atlantis in the Bahamas. And of course, it was also ultimately based around the idea and the fantasy of Atlantis, the lost city. For those of you who know, it's true that in Western mythology, that Atlantis is supposed to be somewhere west of Gibraltar. I don't think they imagined it was as far west as the Bahamas, but never mind. Here it is. I think the big difference here is that, first of all, the next slide, please. It's a renovation project, right? There was something there already, so something that was built on. And then next one, please. It was also very much an educational project. So in addition to all the usual components of a big hotel, the casino, at the time when this opened in 1994, what you're seeing here was part of the largest open seawater aquarium in the world. And it stocked the entire marine life of the Caribbean. So there was a real seriousness around this, in addition to the spectacular fantasy of Atlantis, right? And next one, you sort of see the combination of aquarium, education, teaching you about fish, and then being able to slide through this thing with sharks swimming around you, etc. So there's kind of, amazing guest journey, right? George, I don't know whether you have any views on this, guest journeys through aquariums and sharks floating around you, guest journeys and water slides, etc.
Yeah, I think it was the same client, and there is a casino. They allow you to do more things than if it's just a straight out resort because they have a larger revenue flow.
Yeah.
So I think this was, I guess, the next step, in the evolution of this fantasy related to a specific place, because the previous one did relate to Africa. this related to the Bahamas. So you take the elements that are there and you weave them and mix them into some, fantastic experience.
Mm. And you said rightly that this is the same client, which I think goes to the other point that you made in a previous conversation we had, that it really is about being able to be taken with a client from one place to another. And in doing so, of course, you get to know that client really well, and then you're able to push some boundaries, perhaps.
Yeah, it works both ways. I mean, I think the client upped his game, we upped our game. We had to, the two firms or entities had a better understanding and better chemistry. And, so repeat business is important.
Yeah, repeat business is important. Exactly. Before we move on to Dubai, I wanted to touch upon one more thing, which is about the program, the operations, and the functions, because this is a huge place. This is more than 2,400 rooms. And so the technical knowledge, the functional knowledge, the operational knowledge, how do you make that work, just in terms of guest experience, but also support? Anything to say on that?
I think back in the 70s, one of our employees who ultimately became a partner was tasked with writing programs. So all the hotels we had done to date, he recorded the room size, the number of rooms, and he would allocate from, is it a 5-star, 4-star, 3-star? Is it 200 rooms? Is it 300 rooms? Is it 500 rooms? All of these relationships and all of these ratios would change accordingly. So now artificial intelligence may be doing that for us now. I don't know. Before it used to be on an 8x10 piece of paper. So our record of working with different hotel chains and each hotel group or management group, they have their own ratios or cookbook for want of a better word. And sometimes with some operators, we would actually be giving like a 2 or 3 inch thick book of their standards, and we would implement it or try to implement it to their specific program. So I think we also had people from our firm join the technical services department of other hotel management groups. So there's a relationship, and I assume that relationship is still ongoing, where we have an insight, what's hot, what's not,
maybe that's something
so that we can keep up with the demands.
We sometimes lose people to hotel management companies. Maybe we should do the reverse, right, and hire some people from those companies back. This is the last one I want to end with, because it's obviously directly related to the Atlantis in the Bahamas. I don't know what one would call it, Atlantis 2 or the Eastern Atlantis, whatever. It's nowhere near as comprehensive in terms of the seascape and the waterscape and all those things that Paradise Island in the Bahamas offers. But nonetheless, it's an impressive piece. And what always amazes me about it, in the next couple of slides, we'll see the water slides, and the components are very much the same, right? They're combining aquarium experiences with the complete fantasy of the ruins of another Atlantis. But what strikes me most about this is that it actually, in many ways, if you go to the next slide, this one, whether you go on the metro in Paris or in London, or I've seen this in New York, for many, many years, this building was the symbol of tourism in Dubai. And, right. we should be proud of that. I think Burj Khalifa has probably replaced it by now as the more dramatic building, but it's very impressive. What are your thoughts about that? How we take sort of one model building and kind of march it around the world? What are your thoughts about that, George, as an architect?
Well, I mean, I've already disclosed how disrespectful I am as an architect. Okay. So this is a business, and and our business is to create, successful projects for our clients.
Yeah.
I don't think we, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what we do now. I would never expect us to take a single building and say, this is us. I would rather show a spectrum of what we can do and what we're about. And it's horses for courses, So
That's
I
right.
guess that's my response.
Yeah, and I think we continue that today, right? One of the opening slides of this presentation with all these very different products,
Right.
all these very different architectural styles, different locations. That's who we are, and that's how we present ourselves. So to conclude, first of all, I want to thank you, George, for your time, but also want to open it up to questions. If any of you here or in Hawaii have questions for George, I think we've got some microphones. Yes, Eileen's doing that. Oh, on the table there. Anyone?
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, George. My name is Ty. I was wondering if you could share one of your largest or biggest challenges during your career and a lasting lesson that you learned from it.
Well, I once did a project in Fiji, and I worked in another firm's office while I was doing that, our collaborating architect. And a hurricane came in, and it put the airport underwater for 2 weeks after that. So my 3-week assignment turned into a 6-week assignment. And just from this is a personal life kind of challenge, not necessarily a professional kind of challenge, but collaborating architects that you got to know, and it stayed with me a long time. I don't know if that's the kind of experience you're want to discuss. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it that way.
Well, it's certainly true that so many of our memorable experiences seem to be tied up with travel or with, getting stuck in particular places or destinations. And that's what we're about too, isn't it? Not designing in the office, but being out in the world and trying to understand new places, different peoples, etc. That's what many of us find attractive.
I think that it behooves one to be just respectful and low key rather than brash and in your face. I think that approach is a much more successful way to approach people and situations.
Yeah. Any questions in Singapore? Wow, come on. Ejin.
Hi, George. Just a question, just to ask you, what set us apart, WATG, from other firms at the time? And I think whether these things still endure. What do you think set us apart in terms of how we worked with clients or how we generated our designs?
I think in the 70s and 80s, there weren't other firms that specialized in hospitality or gaming or leisure. So our niche was unique in itself. I assume we have more competitors. I don't know what percent of their projects are dedicated to that niche. So that's part of it. I think the other part, I think, is
I was thinking about how we work as well, right? And how we.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I was thinking about how we how we actually worked and created designs, was it any different from the way that
Well, again, I don't know how it's you approach your projects currently. Back in the day, we would we call it a SWAT team. So we'd be 2 or 3 people. They'd go out on site. They would develop alternate visions or concepts with the client and his key consultants. And in 2 or 3 days, we had a direction. And then design would take its natural progress, concept, pre-schematic, schematic, design development, etc. So it was a real commitment, and it was a real challenge. And I think the clients were impressed because they also had authorship in the final product.
And participation, yeah. Anyone else?
I got
Okay.
another question here.
Oh, yes.
Hi, George, Kevin Jarrett. Good seeing you again. I had a question about what do you really feel fuels creativity? First part of the question. Second part, what are you doing nowadays, now that you're retired, to keep your creative juices going?
Yeah. Well, creativity. I think before I get into creativity, architecture, it's a lot more than just a great design. How do you build a building? How do you manage your client? I mean, there's all different skill levels and interest levels. So it's a very broad field. And probably each of those levels or departments or whatever, they all require creativity, right? I mean, so back to like design creativity. I don't know how you, I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. I think you just need to be open. You just need to be open to input. I think openness is probably the biggest thing from my point of view, and I don't know if that's descriptive enough to answer it.
George, I want to thank you very much for your time and for your insights. I think the challenge to all of us is to listen to these stories and these insights and to figure out how do we carry this legacy forward and how do we translate what great success stories back in the day, as George says, into equally successful places today that resonate and that are relevant in ways in which all of these amazing projects were and in many cases still are. So thank you.
Could I interject this?
Oh, wait.
The design way, we weren't that clever in the day. When you come in the door, you'd get a mentor if you're lucky. And more often than not, you would learn by a mistake or by someone rapping your knuckles, okay? But all of that was taught by a process of learning, presenting, hearing from others in the office. We can't do that, or we shouldn't do that because of this, because of that. So you learn these things verbally, I guess, and by interacting with your peers. So to me, this is great, and I hope it will help you acquaint newcomers in the firm with an approach or just a philosophy or an attitude towards this endeavor that we're all involved in, So good on you.
That's right. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.